jumped out here was, what do you do when faculty members, and let's say, especially those faculty members in the arts, in a diverse institution, do not buy into its religious identity and mission?
You want to start this one? You want me to go?
Well, I'll try. You've got to tie it back to mission and vision first, because each institution does approach that question a little bit differently. So I'll ground it in our mission and vision, and then try to see if there's anything generalizable that comes out. First is that we are focused on building a community that's constituted by people from many and various beliefs and backgrounds, in dialogue with one another and in common pursuit of truth. That's what we are aiming for in terms of our Lutheran identity and character. So we actually want to ensure that there are diverse voices, that students have the opportunity to hear diverse perspectives, including diverse perspectives on faith. Because we're here helping these young people make sense of all of what they're going to hear when they graduate, and to find their position, and to ensure and solidify their belief structure, so that they are capable of navigating the world, which they're going to be navigating the world, not just the fact that the Lutherans don't get along. So I think that's very important for us in terms of how we're focused on the issue of our religious beliefs and backgrounds. So in that regard, we are tolerant of the expression of multiple perspectives. And the key comes in working with the faculty to ensure that if there is a counter perspective being presented, that it is honored, respected, treated with dignity. So we are modeling for students how we begin to converse across difference, because that's the crisis we're facing as a nation right now, is how we begin to engage in dialogue that is mutually respectful across difference. And that's the space we've chosen to place ourselves in. So that's how I would respond to that question. Some people do not subscribe to our beliefs here, but I will say this: that everyone who is hired gets a letter from me that says, if you come to this institution, that you understand and agree to participate in an institution that upholds the Christian intellectual tradition. And the Christian intellectual tradition can accommodate difference. But ultimately, we're resting on the Christian intellectual tradition. So that's how we've tried to manage that from our particular perspective.
Speaking unofficially for the Catholic set, Catholicism is the largest of the Christian segments, and probably historically also the richest artistically, although not in every area. But to the question of diversity on the campus, I would agree with everything that Mark just said, that within the 220 or so Catholic institutions in the United States, we have a spectrum. We have some very small and a couple of not so small institutions which are very traditional, very close to the seminary model, but educating lay students. And at the other end, we have some mid-size and a few very large institutions which treat themselves as cosmopolitan universities with a Catholic emphasis, but acknowledging that maybe 40% of the students are Catholic, and the intake of students and of faculty and of donors and of board members intentionally represents the society in whatever the catchment scope of that institution is, whether it's local, regional, national, or beyond. That means that not only is perforce there going to be diversity among the faculty and staff and senior administration, but that it is viewed desirable. The Christian message is to serve all. The parables that Jesus used to educate his disciples and apostles did not ask people first what their belief system was before serving. They were served first. A person was rescued from their illness, from their pain, from their suffering, from their ostracism first, and then invited to faith. And in an environment where we try to blend faith and reason in intentional ways, in ways that take advantage of the diverse expertise and the diverse faith walks of the people on a campus, we say it's not just acceptable, it's desirable, for the very reason you said, to have this diversity. Now, if we take it down to where does the rubber meet the road when people don't get along, some of that is just modeling life in the real world. And so you would hope that if Professor A and Professor C are at odds with each other in a department, or those are groups of people, that there would be a larger body of people who are able to moderate that conversation and make it work. Even if not persuading these people in terms of their belief, at least make their behavior work on a campus so that we have a civil, constructive, productive environment in which everyone can be proud and everyone can be respected. And I think that respect for the dignity of life in the form of each person and that person's identity is one of the critical things that our campuses offer in comparison to the secular institutions. We really emphasize that point, although there may be a doctrinal overlay for those who are disposed to take advantage of it. We believe that each person's dignity requires that we respect those very differences. A practical point I would suggest is whenever there is a committee, Boston College has a committee on Christian art. Note that, not Catholic art, Christian art. And it's predominantly Catholics because the institution is predominantly Catholic, but it includes people who are not Catholic. I had a committee at St. Xavier, Committee on Catholic Identity, and I went after several of the most prominent, most outspoken non-Catholics on the faculty and placed them on the committee. And one of those was a gentleman. I didn't really like him all that much. He was a provocateur on every conceivable thing. But I invited him to the committee. He came in my office and stood there and cried in front of me and said, "This is the most important appointment," he'd been there about 18 years, "I have ever been asked to accept. Because I know how important this is to you, to the Sisters of Mercy, to so many people, and to have me, a professed non-sharer in that faith tradition, on this committee says a whole lot to me, and I'm sure it'll say a whole lot to other people." It's not just what we say, it's how we engage ourselves across those boundary lines that we hope sets a model for those who themselves don't have the power that a dean or a president or a provost or even a department chair would have. And students notice, they really do. Students pay more attention to these things than we think. There are two groups on campus that know everything that's going on. It's not the president. It's the secretarial pool. And the people who do basically your housekeeping staff. They know everything that happens. They know what's going on in the dorms in a way that presidents and vice presidents just don't. And secretaries, if you get 5 of them together, they can tell you every significant problem on the campus. It's one of the reasons why I had lunch about once every 2 weeks with one of those groups. I learned more that way than I learned by my cabinet meetings. But what it says also is that faculty and mid-level administrators can learn a lot from students and from their colleagues if we just ask. And that produces a productive dialogue. It doesn't get rid of all